This is going to be funny, and it's not going to smell.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
We're here, Jamie.
Yes, Sam. Feels like it's been ages since we've recorded together.
Feels like 1,000 ice ages since we last recorded together. But look at us now. I'm here, you're here, we're here.
It's true. We're talking about the 1989 movie, Intruder.
Intruder.
Which, if you believe the marketing, stars Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, and Ted Raimi.
Cover stars, no less.
Yeah. Bruce Campbell
Sure.
gets top billing on that DVD box, on the VHS box.
Top billed star of this movie, Bruce Campbell, who, spoiler alert, is in the movie for 12 seconds.
Yeah. If that. And it might be his worst performance.
Oh, I don't know. Pretty fucking... I really enjoyed it, actually. So, yes, Bruce Campbell, top billed. If that's what pulled you in to this podcast and or this movie, oof, rough ride for you, pal.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably talk about Bruce Campbell for a bit, but we'll talk about him for way longer than he's in the movie.
Yeah, guaranteed. We already have, I imagine.
It's true. We already have.
So how did you first come across Intruder?
Oh, it's a great question. I don't really remember. I feel like this might have been one that I landed on later.
Mm-hmm.
It had a
In
great...
those hazy years
Yeah.
of your 30s.
Maybe not quite that late, maybe in my 20s, but it had a really cool like DVD box.
Mm.
And then it was like re-released by like Arrow or whatever, and they're like, and the cover of that spoils the movie. So don't look at that if you can.
If you like me hate anything being spoiled in a movie, my advice, basically don't look at anything to do with this film. Like,
yeah, the trailer also spoils who the killer is, and the movie is ostensibly a whodunit.
yeah, so I'm really glad I found all this out afterwards. I didn't look at fucking anything. I had no idea. What I do is I kind of hover my hand over the cover if it pops up on IMDb or whatever I'm watching it on. And if it looks spoily, I just sort of wiggle my hand a little bit and look away. If it doesn't look spoily, I'll give myself a treat and look at the cover. But holy crap, it shows you who the killer is on the cover of every edition of this I can find. And I obviously looked at them all afterwards, and then I watched the trailer and I was like, that's the line that tells you who the killer is, and it's the killer saying it. So, super dumb.
It is dumb.
Yeah. And the title as well. Should we talk about the title real quick?
Yeah, so obviously it was released under the title Intruder, but was made under the title Night Crew, The Final Checkout.
Yeah.
Which is a much, much better title.
It's 1,000 times better, and it's not even the best one out of the list of potential titles. There was some great shit in there, all themed around, the sort of, what are we talking about here? It's like a mini market, convenience store, supermarket.
I would call it a supermarket. It's quite big for a mini market, but it's not like the big Tesco's, is it?
Yeah, true. It's pretty big for the time. Let's go supermarket.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they filmed it in a Ralph's.
I don't know what the actual chain that they shot it in was, but I know it's a real supermarket, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's a Ralph's because they have the beer brand beer, which is the same one that they have in Repo Man.
Nice.
And that is Ralph's own brand beer.
Yep. There's a Dutch beer brand that's just beer as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Amazing.
But as a Repo Man super fan, I've learned that, so I can spot that a mile away. Do you know that they also have like a Kentucky bourbon in that same branding?
Do they really?
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Nice. There's a lot of really good off-brand Kentucky bourbons out there. I feel like it's one that people really fucking go to town on if they're going to do an off-brand version, right?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them are like Old Samuel or...
Old someone.
Yeah, or like something that sounds vaguely Jack Daniels or Jim Beam-esque.
Yeah.
But this one is just Kentucky bourbon.
Just fucking say what you are. Did you ever have SKB, Sainsbury's Kentucky bourbon?
I've never had
Oof.
Sainsbury's Kentucky bourbon.
Absolutely certain you can't get it anymore. Holy crap, was that a staple of my first year at uni? It was fucked up strong and tasted like crap, but it was like £10 a bottle.
I remember us sharing a bottle of bourbon at, was it a Manchester?
Yeah, in someone else's uni flat or some shit. Did we go
Yeah.
Was that a thing?
Potentially. I remember, I feel like I remember us standing outside, but I can't remember if we were standing outside the venue talking about having done that or doing that.
Memories within memories.
It was, what, 11 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time. Especially if the core memory, the foundational part of this is sharing a bottle of bourbon. You've already superseded my expectations in terms of memory.
Do you remember what that bourbon would have been?
I mean, if it was my choice, it would have been anything but Jim Beam.
Yeah, well, I think it was a supermarket owned brand one, so it might have been Clark's or it might have been Old Samuel.
Clark's is what, Audi?
Yeah, they didn't do it anymore.
This would be a great quiz question. Attach the own bourbon to the supermarket brand.
If you're listening to this and you remember some other kinds of old supermarket owned brand bourbons, keep it to yourself. Nobody wants to hear it.
If you made it this far, I commend you. Speaking of things no one wants to hear about, I'm drinking a French Lidl own brand lager right now, Saint Bertin, and it is delicious. I love a stubby.
It's a stubby, yeah.
Problem is, it's gone in like 2 swallows.
Yeah, why are they always like mainland Europe? Is that a stub? Is that what stubbies? Is that where they come from?
I think it's because people on the continent know how to drink in moderation, and we don't. I look at this and I'm like, okay, I guess I got to drink 16 beers in one sitting. Whereas they look at it, they're like, oh, one small delicious beer, what a treat. We're fucking idiots.
I feel like we can't say that when some people in the mainland drink beer out of shoe-shaped glasses.
And Stein's the size of my head.
Yeah.
You
My
these are all
head.
good
And I've got a
points.
huge fucking melon
You've got
on
a
this.
conking great Swede on you.
Yeah. Anyway, none of this is about Intruder.
Nope.
We are on form, Sam.
So the Raimis, Ted and Sam, are also in this film, and they actually are in it. They're not just written on the box and then barely in it at all. They have a significant little chunk of time.
Yeah, well, so the director, Scott Spiegel, he is part of the Raimi's crew. He grew up with Ted and Sam. Well, I guess he grew up with Sam and Ted because Ted's a little bit younger, maybe 7 years younger.
Yeah, the Spiegmeist. He was good buds with, and instrumental in a lot of Sam Raimi's work, right?
Yeah, so like they would, I guess, share directing duties on like the Super 8 movies that they would shoot when they were kids. I guess share directing duties isn't really what you would call it. They were just, it was all a big mess of, okay, you do this, it'll be cool.
Yeah, whoever's telling people to do stuff for that one specific thing is the director.
And like, so he could have easily have been Sam Raimi, but he wasn't in the end.
But he does have some chops.
He does, specifically in this movie, I think he does some interesting things visually. He didn't really go on to have much of a career after this. A couple of straight-to-video movies, the third Hostel movie.
Some bits for/with Sam Raimi, right? Little bits in all of Raimi's big movies. Probably just gets the call, does it for fun, hangs out, fucks off. I got a lot of respect for that. I mean, what I love about how this movie's made is that it feels like an extension of that Evil Dead process in that it's made in 2 weeks. It's fast as fuck front to back. It's first take stuff. It's based on one of their old shorts. It feels like part of that family.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And you get that visually as well, which I guess we'll talk about in some depth after the break. It definitely feels like part of that group of friends sort of growing up and developing into people that make actual films rather than just dicking about in the garden.
Yeah, it's an extension of all that good shit.
Yeah. Should we do a quick synopsis and then take a break and then come back and get into some spoilery territory?
Let's do it. Let's spoil the fuck out of this movie.
Yeah, so I'll do the synopsis if you want, Sam. I'll give you a break this week.
I'll give you a little bit of light lifting now and then. Go on, give it a crack.
We're at the Walnut Grove supermarket, Walnut Grove Market, something like that. Is that what it's called? Walnut something. And
Walnut.
yeah, Walnut something. We follow a bunch of teenagers who work in the supermarket. Our lead girl, Jennifer, played by Liz Kern, her ex-boyfriend shows up and he's been in prison for manslaughter for killing someone in a bar fight. We find out that the supermarket will be closing its doors. They're selling it to the city. And someone is killing off the staff. Someone is slashing not only the prices, but the staff.
Good grief, Jamie.
I mean, when in Rome, Sam.
When in Walnut Lake.
Is it Walnut Lake? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. But who's the killer? Is it recently released Craig? Or is there somebody else out there killing folks for some reason or another? The answer is spoilers. Yes.
Yes, correct. That's a pretty extended synopsis of a really simple slasher. I like your work there. Well played.
Yeah. Let's take this break and we'll come back and then we'll get into it hard.
All right, let's get hard and get into it.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Sam, what record labels are you plumping at the moment?
Just Fat Wreck. No, wait. Just mostly Red Scare Industries. I mean, you want to talk about a label that launched the career of the Menzingers. You are welcome, people. Chicago's premier purveyors of punk, rock, power, pop, party, pinata music. Get your lips around some redscare.net is my advice. What about you, Jamie?
I have the same advice. I think that is good advice. You should go to that website, buy yourself a record or a t-shirt, a koozie, like, I don't know, do what you need to do. But like, just go there and buy the things.
Do what you need to do, but get it done. Redscare.net. Oh, I'm back. You back?
Yeah, I'm back. So, Sam, you'd never seen this before, right?
Never seen it. It's been on my list for the longest time, but the problem I have with late 80s slashers is that they pile up a little bit, and you've got to be in just the right place to watch them, because sometimes they are fucking spectacular, and sometimes they feel like such a complete fucking waste of time. You feel like an idiot for even pressing play. So
yeah,
several, quote unquote, it's classic slashers have sort of slipped into my I'll get to it when I get to it pile. But let me tell you, I was very glad to finally get to watch this movie. So this is obviously a rewatch for you.
Yeah.
You are coming at this relatively fresh, not seen it in a while?
I think I might have watched it within the last year.
Okay. Obviously. The endless carousel of movies that Jamie watches like a fucking jukebox on auto. Popped it on at some point.
Yeah, it's not quite Cue the Winged Serpent for me. But right, I do. Okay. But it is one that I pop on when I can't think of what else I'm going to watch.
Okay.
Because it's easy watching and it's good fun. It's gooey enough and also silly enough that you can engage and disengage. I think when I watched it last, not this time, but when I watched it within the year or whatever it was like a night that Andy was over. We were drinking whiskeys and chatting shit and playing guitars, all while it was sort of playing in the background. So
nice scene. So that's already implying to me that this movie is in your good pile. It's one of the ones that you return to.
Absolutely. I think you would be hard pressed to find a more fun slasher, I think. What do you think, Sam? You tell me.
I think this movie fucking rips. It is one of those box tickers that I was kind of struggling to fault at one point. Like, I cannot overstate how much fun I had watching this film.
Amazing.
The fact that the Raimis are in it just ratchets this shit up to 100. And the fact that they obviously have, like, in that classic sense we talked about, a say in some of the stuff that happens directorially, or at least in terms of like angles and shot choice and delivery of lines and shit, feels co-directed in exactly the same way that, Evil Dead and a lot of the early Raimi stuff does. So
yeah, I have a page in my notes of Raimi-isms.
Great. A whole fucking page. I love that. But I mean, instantly I knew I was going to love this, because as soon as I realized it was going to be like a one setting deal, you want to talk about tick all my boxes. It's a one setting place. It's a place of American commerce. It's a supermarket. It's Raimi's. It's everyone going nuts all at once. It's a whodunit slasher. It has the potential to be one of my favorite slashers ever, and it really, really delivers on so many levels. I hope people listening to this have as much fun watching it for the first time as I did, because I was howling. It was a real good time.
The sense of fun is so. I mean, like when it wants to be intense and fairly grueling, it absolutely is. But the sense of fun and the sense of joy is really there. Like you can sort of feel how much fun everyone's having.
Yeah, it's a real like game of ping pong. It will go from some of the most oppressive sounding and feeling like cloistered, squishy visuals, and then the next thing is just the hammiest, goofiest slapstick. So
Yeah.
I love that, because in a lot of films that just falls flat as fuck, and it's just not pulled off
Yeah.
or it's just not done well, or it's lost in the edit, or something happens that it doesn't come through in translation. But when Raimi's are doing it, holy jackanori, is it good fun?
Like those things will even happen in a smash cut. So like you'll be in the middle of like a harrowing death scene and the knife will come down and then we're smash cutting to someone slicing a watermelon in half.
Yeah, exactly.
Or someone gets whacked in the face with a fucking mallet or whatever and they're falling to the floor and we smash cut to a sack of spuds falling to the floor.
Perfect.
Which is it's so tonally I think it's like completely perfect. I think you can't fault it.
Yeah, it's great. You immediately expect a Bruce Campbell one-liner after those cuts. That's the only thing that's missing. To be fair, I think we can kind of fucking leap ahead miles here and say that maybe my only criticism of this is a lack of Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very strong Bruce Campbell performance
Okay.
that we get as Officer Howard at the end, which again is a reference to the Three Stooges and the shit that they love.
There's so much Three Stooges in this.
Yeah. I mean, that's their bread and butter, isn't it? Like when they were coming up, they were just, making little goofy Three Stooges type shorts.
Yeah.
Some of them happened to be horror and they sort of found their way into horror through that, which is, I love the sensibility, which obviously we've come to expect from Raimi and we see it a lot here, is that like the horror is the comedy.
Yeah.
I think, is it Mark Kermode that says, it's like a slapstick comedy, but the blood is custard pies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think taking horror to a comedy place is always risky, and not a lot of people do it as consistently well as Sam Raimi and, by extension, Scott Spiegel in this. But there's just something about the whole universe that Raimi manages to do it in that makes it hilarious. It's more the attention to detail to what's happening around the horror that makes it funny than it is just like, look how funny it is when this guy gets his fucking head cut off, which I think is real subtle artistry. And I know he obviously gets a lot of credit for it, but I like to shout that out when I see it because it's such a marriage of all the things I enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely timing as well. It's like comedy timing. Like in that moment when the guy's getting his head chopped off with a bandsaw, which we will absolutely come back to and talk about for about maybe an hour. But like the fact that goes on for the exact right amount of time, so you go through the 7 stages of grief or whatever while it's happening.
Yeah,
it's like it's perfect. You go from like horrible to howling within the perfect amount of time. It's masterful. I think I read in an interview in Gorezone.
Shout out Gorezone.
Yeah, shout out Fangoria from the 80s with the Intruder cover, which is fun.
Incredible.
The editor couldn't even look while they were editing it. They were just had to avert their eyes and just
I read there was people crying while it was happening because
Yeah.
the head was so fucking real. And
like it's wild because some of those like makeup prosthetic head things not great.
no.
They had a $500,000 shooting budget, which I guess included all special effects.
Yeah.
So, you put your money where your mouth is, right? And this is the shot that the entire movie is built around.
Do you know why they had such great effects on such a tiny budget? Did you read about this?
Well, I knew that it was Nicotero and Howard Berger and Robert Kurtzman, who obviously were Savini's crew when he was making Day of the Dead. So, I mean, I just assumed that that's why it was so good.
Well, yeah, that's why it was so good. But they were just getting started with their own company, and they were sort of out making a name for themselves. And I think the way it went is that Spiegel wanted really high class, really high budget effects, but the budget came in so low, so he was struggling. And he was kind of thinking like, okay, well, it's gonna look a bit shitty. And he spoke to Nicotero, who was like, we'll just do it for like $700 each. And they just struck a deal that they'd get, lots of nice big credit in the, in the promotional stuff and in the credits and lots of hype, but they would do it super cheap. And, they go all out on this. It's not like they did a cheap job. It's not like they were using like inferior props or anything. That gelatin head is fucking unreal. It's so good. So I think that's another wonderful, like, glory days of semi-independent filmmaking in Hollywood. Like, let's call Nicotero up and see if we'll do it for $700. Oh my God, he said yes. That's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it gives it that real sort of DIY feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, do you know when a DIY band records with fucking Steve Albini or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's why this sounds amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
like
Steve Albini listened to it and was like, yeah, I'll fit you guys in because I like it.
Yeah, and that adds to the fun, doesn't it? It makes it a passion project.
Yeah.
It becomes less like a hired gun type deal. Plus, like, it feels to me, and I know I've got nothing to really base this on except like my experience of watching these movies, but it feels to me like someone like Greg Nicotero has the same kind of sensibilities as the Raimis and wants to contribute to that, slapstick, fun, silly, but incredibly gory and still violently terrifying atmosphere of these movies. So you want to talk about like a dream team falling together. They got the location for this movie for like $2,500 or something. Yeah. Like the owner's just away, so they just rented the place. I think all of that is like DIY fairy tale stuff. And especially given how horribly cynical Hollywood was in the late 80s transitioning into the 90s, how like, just fucking zombified filmmaking, just complete trash for the most part. Like this really stands out for me as a bit of a late 80s gem.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think horror was becoming, from the mid 80s, it was becoming like the way to make an easy buck. Because horror fans will watch anything.
Yeah.
They might hate it, but you'll have got your rental money off them at least. Mm-hmm. So like they'll literally watch anything. And to a certain extent that's still true, I think.
Yeah, sure. But especially like when word of mouth was so vitally important back then, even bad publicity is publicity. If you're going to school and saying like, oh, I went to see this fucking Intruder movie and it sucked, but there was a bit where a guy got his head cut in half by a bandsaw, at least 10 of your friends are going to go watch that movie straight away and spend $10 a piece.
It's true. The VHS that I had of this when I was hammering VHS in my mid-20s and I was clinging onto it, I think I found it in like a secondhand shop or something. That scene was so fucked and warped because I guess whoever had it before just kept rewinding it and just watching that one scene over and over again.
Holy crap.
I wish I knew who that was so I could be like, hey man, let's be friends.
Are you okay?
It's weird that we've come to that from different angles there. You're
absolutely,
worried for them, and I just want to be pals with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's my copy of Evil Dead on VHS was exactly the same, except the whole thing was like that because I watched it so fucking many times. It's a real like rite of passage for a VHS tape to reach the point where it's so worn you can't watch it anymore. But I mean, imagine how many people have watched the kill scenes from this movie in isolation on YouTube as part of like best slasher kills ever in lists and stuff. I think, if I'm honest, when the bandsaw thing was about to happen, I did think to myself, I think I might have seen this like about to happen in one of those top deaths ever slasher movie things and skipped it because I wanted to watch the whole movie. I think maybe like the setup looked really familiar to me. And some of the establishing shots in this film looked really, really familiar. So I started to wonder if I'd seen it before, and I went back and checked, and I definitely hadn't seen it before, but I've definitely seen it featured in like, underappreciated slashers of the 80s lists and saved it to watch in full.
Yeah, I think like this and The Burning are like the two actually good slashers that weren't household names during the 80s.
For sure.
I think everything else you can say, oh yeah, it's good, but it's not The Burning or Intruder good. I think this is like the pinnacle of like this kind of slasher.
Does Maniac fall into that at all? I mean, that's much earlier, right? It's 1980.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about Maniac in terms of it being a slasher,
Hmm.
but I'm not quite sure I would call it a slasher.
Okay.
We'll find out because it's on the list, and I think we're going to cover it next month.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
You mentioned the location and it's sort of it being in this one location. I really like the idea of like slashers that are set in like that aren't set in the backwoods.
Hmm.
Like the backwoods is already scary, so like you know you don't need to have a slasher there to be scared. You're scared that some Appalachian fuck is going to just come and hit your head with a hammer or something. Like it doesn't matter.
Right.
But the idea that the guy next door is getting killed, do you know what I mean? That's terrifying.
Yeah, for sure. I agree to an extent. I don't find the Appalachian setting particularly innately scary. I never really have. Like people have to really go some to make me scared of like people who live in the woods and shit like that. But I do find, city-based horror much scarier. I mean, top of that list for me is like suburban horror.
Yeah.
Because that to me is much more resonant as part of places I've lived and things I've done. And a lot of city horror ends up being a little bit obvious for my taste. It ends up being the thing that you think is scary does turn out to be scary. There's always layers to suburban horror that really fucks with me. And this feels very suburban California to me, which is where it's shot. Isn't it supposed to be set in Michigan?
I guess that's where they're from, right? So,
Yeah.
And based on Scott Spiegel's teen years working in the supermarket, but like,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be Michigan. The only thing that's even remotely Michigan-y about it is Bill, right? Everyone else is California as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really going granular, some of the products in the supermarket look a little bit less California and a little bit more Michigan, but for the most part, it's shot there. It's shot on a low budget. There's not much done to make it appear more Michigan. The accents are fairly non-regional for the most part. There's a couple of characters who have like a slightly thicker accent. But, watching it for the first time without any of that prior knowledge, I assumed this was like a suburban Northern California. Because I think there's a place in California called Walnut Creek that I've been to before, and that's quintessentially, California suburbia. So I was associating it with that, and it clicked perfectly for me. It looked and felt very much like that. And the teenagers felt of that region as well. I'm wondering if maybe the actors are, LA kids, or if maybe they're
Almost
all
definitely.
yeah. But either way, a fantastic setting for a movie. I could just fucking talk about this supermarket all night, so I won't bore you to tears with it. But just suffice to say, for a movie that was obviously lit on the fly, shot super weirdly by, obviously the fact that this isn't a set, this is a real place. Limited time, limited space, limited movement, economy of all of the above equals fucking cool looking setting, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And I think like the idea of a supermarket, there's all this stuff that you sort of know from like being in supermarkets. And there's all these like weird little, like the spaces between the aisles where you can hide people and like
Yeah.
there's butchers and like bread machines and all these kind of things that are, bread machines are called ovens, right?
The bread machine. Celiac horror, bread machine.
If you think hard enough, you can find a million scary things inside a supermarket, but you never picture it like that because it never feels like that when you're in there.
For sure. The supermarket is one of my least favorite places to be as a human being, but one of my favorite movie settings.
Like generally, the supermarket movie is what, like a teen coming of age,
Yeah.
like Clerks or Waiting, except Waiting they work in a restaurant. But I'm sure there's a Waiting style movie about people that work at a supermarket. I can't think of what
There's loads of great scenes in movies where kids are getting off work at a supermarket, or they're bummed because they have to go to work at the supermarket, or they're pushing trolleys around, or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
it's a great, of this era trope. It's mass consumer America. It's, fast food. Well, not fast food. I guess it's fast food adjacent, but it's like grocery type culture, and it's all becoming quite homogenized and similar, and these places all look and feel the same is the idea, right? And there's pure terror in that for anyone with a brain. So innately bringing a sense of unease from the beginning, and then escalating that into violent murder. It's just a fucking great recipe for a good night.
Yeah, and I think like when you're in the supermarket, you're never scared. So like
I'm
taking,
scared I'll collapse out of boredom for the
well,
most
yeah,
part. Like I'm such a moody prick when I'm in the supermarket. Shout out to anyone who actually knows me in real life listening to this. If you try and talk to me in the supermarket, don't. Okay? My fucking hard message to you is leave me the fuck alone. I'll talk to you another time. I hate every second I'm there. But I'll happily watch a movie about it till I'm blue in the face.
yeah. I just think like the idea of taking a thing that isn't remotely scary or threatening
Yeah.
and making it scary and threatening through just showing it from a different angle. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, literally showing it from a different angle. I love all of so in the Raimiisms list, there's all this cool stuff like the super low angles, the trolley cam. I love the trolley cam.
Great fun. And that's when I knew I was all in.
Yeah.
Because that's opening scene territory, right? When I saw the bad boy boyfriend and the trolley cam, I was like, fucking hey, who directed this? And then I looked and I was like, okay, I see.
The way that the products on the shelves distort people's faces as they walk past them. That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, all the jars and the bottles and stuff.
It's like it's pure Raimi stuff, but like
Yeah.
we're doing Scott Spiegel a disservice because who knows if Raimi got that from him or like they just sort of thought of it together or
Yeah.
That's why it sucks to me that like he never really got a proper career.
Sure. I mean, I always wonder in this exact situation where somebody, you know, quote unquote on paper doesn't have a career, but probably is a multimillionaire with a really nice life. He's just having a lovely time and feels creatively satisfied to have had all those wild adventures making those crazy movies in the early days. And then just, you know, cool. I guess I'll just meditate and hike and hang out and go be in Spider-Man every now and then.
I don't think that's true because like he's just finished making a movie now.
All right.
Called Spring Break '83.
Oh, what? I'm in. What is it? I don't care. I'm going to watch it.
I mean, whether it's a slasher or a coming of age film, it's you, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
you all over.
For sure.
I feel like he didn't want to make From Dusk Till Dawn 2 or the Modesty Blaze movie that they made so they didn't have to give the rights back to the people that should own the rights.
Sure.
Like, I feel like he didn't want to be the guy that was making those movies.
Right.
Hostel 3, maybe. I quite like Hostel 3.
Okay.
I mean, it's not good, but it has some of that fun in there.
Some spunk.
Yeah. And like he was, like you say, he was in a bunch of movies and he wrote a couple of other things, but not loads. I just wish that we had more from him.
Yeah. I completely agree in just wishing there was more. But we got him as dock worker number 5 in Darkman. So, you know, what more do you want?
Yeah. I mean, he shows up in this as well. He's the bread delivery man.
Yeah. And a great death, you know.
Yeah.
Gets what he deserves. Bread boy.
The bread delivery man kill really highlighted the absolute lack of internal logic and internal like physics in this movie.
Right.
Because the killer, whoever it may be, at this point, we're not spoiling it just yet, I don't think. Have we spoiled it yet? I don't know if we have.
I don't think we have. We've just said that it's obvious.
Yeah. Like, the killer is unconscious on the ground, and then suddenly he's outside the locked doors,
Yeah.
killing the bread man.
It's so sick. And I gotta say, I wouldn't consider myself by any stretch of the imagination the sharpest tool in the theater when it comes to figuring out the whodunits. I'm pretty good intuitively at figuring out where something's going. It doesn't have to be too obvious. But the second I saw this bad boy, here comes the big spoiler alert, people. Turn it off if you're not ready to find out who done it in Intruder. I was like, not him. Absolutely not him. No chance in hell it's him. Straight away. Which made it fairly easy to deduce who it was, you know?
Yeah. You know that in a movie like this, they're going to basically like repair this kid's image.
Yeah. There's gonna be some kind of, well, yeah, because he's a real fuck. He's like slapping his girlfriend around, totally stepping over the line every 2 seconds. You know immediately that he's going to be the savior. Like, oh, this guy's the hero. But there's
funny.
a real sense that you know, you're obviously supposed to think it's him. But I think maybe I'm reading into it. But I think a real Spiegelism here is that he's also telegraphing that it's not him at the same time. They're playing with the trope a bit. I think they're saying like, it's him, but obviously it's not. You know, they're not fucking actually trying to convince anyone except a 15-year-old that he did it.
There's the moment where he is fighting with Bill, who is the killer. That's the spoiler. Bill,
Mm.
the co-owner who doesn't want to sell.
Yep.
He hits Bill with a hammer, and Bill cuts to a sack of spuds.
Yep.
He doesn't get killed. So we're like, okay, you don't just kill someone by like lightly tapping them on the head with a hammer.
I mean, the hammer hit is quite brutal. It's not. It doesn't look like a death kill immediately, but it
No.
does look like what it did for me was okay. Bill's a pretty boring, annoying character for the most part. Maybe he doesn't deserve a bandsaw death. Maybe he just gets whacked with a hammer, and the next kill is going to be a big one. I like that. There's varying degrees of head bonking in this movie that I respect. Like that hammer hit feels quite hard, and it's got a good hefty sound to it. When Bill gets hit with a bottle later on, the fucking Foley on that is like, it sounds so bad.
Well, yeah,
It's
some of
so
the Foley
funny.
is awful.
Yeah, somebody might as well have just gone bonk when he got hit on the head. But there's some really good stuff as well. Like,
Yeah.
there's loads of really good shit, but a few of those impact hits, yowzers, trousers.
In like the fight scenes early on when they're like
Yeah.
fighting with Craig, every punch is the same noise.
Every punch, I think, is that John Wayne punch.
Yeah.
I think everyone is that, basically. But it worked for that scene, I think. And again, it's a little extra layer of slapstick. So part of me thinks that's, 3 to 5 beers deep in the editing room slapstick that you can get away with without being like falling over a fucking banana peel.
I don't know what's done on purpose and what is done for comic effect or even to lull you into a false sense of security, because like the slapstick stuff is so slapsticky and those punches are so goofy, and the cuts to the watermelon and the cuts to the sack of spuds and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when they're bandsawing this kid's head, like the Foley is brutal. It sounds like someone sat on the remote and now you're watching like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie or something. It's horrible. And then like I say, it goes on for so long that it becomes funny. But yeah, some of the Foley, it's the same with the music. Like, so I think there's no score for this. I think they just sourced from library music.
Yeah, a lot of stock.
And I really like most of it. So I think it's quite Ghostbusters-y.
Yeah, definitely.
But what I really hate is that one fucking song that Ted Raimi is listening to throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Until it pays off.
Jam.
Yeah, until it pays off in the punchline.
Yeah.
And he gets a knife to the head, which is a great shot because he's like swinging the knife.
Yep.
And then the depth of the shot changes and the knife is behind him and it goes to the top of his head and it cuts his headphones in half, and that's hilarious for a start.
Yep.
And then it's like a slow, mournful version of that song.
Yeah. Really good scene. I love the comical size of this knife that first comes in. Like, I don't know a lot about late 80s butchery techniques and tools, but I can tell you that's a fucking sword. That knife is gigantic and it looks great in shadow. It's got that kind of beveled effect, like where it's been hammered, like hammered steel or whatever the fuck it is. It just looks so much scarier than a normal knife. And it's like, you can almost imagine them being like, how can we make a knife in a slasher more scary? Let's make it fucking huge. Ha, okay. Like nobody's ever thought of that. Like, make it fucking massive and it'll be even scarier. And that is kind of, to a certain extent, the Spiegel Raimi way, right? Like, the bigger the better, but we've only got $10. So I love that shit. I thought that was amazing.
I feel like he shouldn't be doing this job, cutting up this watermelon. He's not doing a very good job of cutting up the watermelon.
A fucking great job. You ever cut a watermelon that big in half in one swing? It's fucking superb.
The cutting it in half is fine. It's when he's trying to like gut out the middle of it, when he's just sort of taking swipes at it in different angles, and
that's one thing that I love that works.
Lifting the knife above his head.
Yeah, just like raging on it. A big part of the humor that works in this for me is that nobody is doing a good job at this supermarket, which I always find funny. Anytime someone's doing like a Joe job and they don't really give a fuck and they do it badly, I'm fucking pissing my pants the whole time. It's a clerksism, right? Yeah. But it's so good here. Like, the trolleys are all over the place. They're knocking shit off the shelves left, right, and center. It's everything's so fucking lackluster, and it's the last night they're ever going to do it by the sound of things. They're marking up this huge sale. They know they've lost their jobs. I love that slackerism. It really plays into that Fast Times at Ridgemont High vibe that I love. None of these kids give a solitary fuck Well, actually, they kind of do. They're bummed they're losing their jobs, and they obviously kind of like working together, but mostly for the social.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's telegraphed from like the very first shot that they're bad at their jobs, because I think the first shot is them like using the pricing gun
Yeah.
and just like pricing up a load of Oreos or whatever it is, and it's just like fucking hell. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so sad that those pricing guns don't exist anymore. I used to love using it when I worked at like Music Zone and HMV when I was a teenager.
Yeah, the reason we liked it is because of movies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I used to pack pet food for a living, I was lucky enough to be able to label every single bag of pet food with one of those label guns. And that's fucking thousands every week. So I was an absolute pro with that fucking thing. And yeah, I have a real nostalgic place in my memory for that, because of the way it feels in your hand, the way it hits the thing, and the way the label slides off, like it just feels good.
Yeah, it's really tactile and like makes a good clunk when you. I really enjoyed using those, and like
it's like whenever you see a Dymo label, you can think of like how you used to print those out to label shit. Whenever I see anything price tag like that, I'm like, exactly what that is.
I use my Dymo all the time.
Yeah, me too.
I love it.
This episode sponsored by Dymo.
Apparently
Get out there and label your life, Dymo. Is that their catchphrase? If it's not, it should be.
Label your life. Get your life in order. Don't kill yourself. What?
Dymo, don't kill yourself. Love it. Perfect. So the title of this movie is misleading. This is not an intruder. This is a guy who works at the shop.
He's the owner. Like he's the exact opposite of an intruder.
He's the 49% shareholder of this business. He ain't an intruder. But they used it to cash in on slashers, right? They were like, all of these movies have a title like this. If you have a title like this, more people will see it. I actually really like the title. The font work, everywhere I see the font work for this, it's fucking absolutely on point. The opening credit font, superb. Font work on the cover, magic. It's got a shuddery feel to it that I think will probably resonate with a modern audience. But this is a classic horror type setting job. It looks fantastic. And I like it as a word. It feels like a metal band. It looks sick. However, I would have preferred if they used one of the punny, shopping supermarket titles. That would have been great.
Yeah, I think Night Crew sounds pretty metal too.
It does. It sounds very Stephen King. It feels like it needs that fucking colon and then a little explanation, which you get in the second version of the title. Yeah. Intruder feels very Maniac, which is a dumb thing to say, but it just does,
Yeah. What do you think of the performances?
Do you know what? When a movie like this gets me so early on, the way this did, shopping trolley cam, leery leather jacket boyfriend, I basically stopped paying attention to anything except the stuff that I like. It's like my brain is like in a slightly wobbly skeptical place at first, and then click, we're in 100% posse mode, no one can do anything wrong. Yeah. So I absolutely adore Sam and Ted Raimi in this movie because they're hucking it up so hard. Their facial expressions are fucking hilarious from start to finish. They're fully invested, I think, but in that really fun, like nothing really matters, nothing lasts kind of way. And everyone around them, was a little bit subsidiary in my initial viewing. I will definitely revisit this movie and focus more on what everyone's doing. But for the most part, I got no notes on Liz Kern playing Jennifer. I thought she was absolutely fantastic. Renee Estevez as Linda, pretty fucking solid best friend. A trope that, what are you saying trope? Like, I guess a role in the slasher universe that can make or break the lead, in my opinion. That supporting role is really fucking important. I mean, how do you feel about Dan Hicks and Eugene Glazer as Bill and Danny? Old school horror hands.
Yeah, well, obviously Danny Hicks is playing an extension of his character in Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
It's like, because that's not how he talks in real life.
Right.
So, like, the fact that he's doing the exact same voice and not saying Bobby Joe 500 times a second or whatever he does in Evil Dead 2, which is like one of my only criticisms of Evil Dead 2 is that how many times this one guy says Bobby Joe.
Yeah, you got to zone out the Hicks. Like,
yeah,
it's the only way to enjoy that movie, pretty much.
But, like, he's having so much fun here, and I enjoy that. When he's great, like when he's delivering lines like "I'm just crazy about this store," like that's great. I love that. But like when he's like trying to be your friend and sitting on the table and stuff,
Mm.
it doesn't gel with me. And I guess that's the point, because he's the baddie, and like
Yeah.
we're supposed to maybe feel a bit uneasy about him, but not be quite sure why. And so maybe it's clever filmmaking. Maybe
I
he's
read
just
it as
a
that.
weird little guy.
He's a creepy older guy. He doesn't seem to have an enormous amount going for him. He doesn't seem able to talk to these kids genuinely on their level. He's telling stories that aren't particularly age appropriate, which we'll get to. And you know, he's just slightly off kilter, but not in a massively obvious "I'm a fucking serial killer" kind of way. And he's not. He just snaps, right? He's not.
Yeah.
He hasn't been doing this his whole life and hiding it. He's not fucking Ted Bundy. But I read also that he was really proud of this performance, that he said it was some of the best stuff he's ever done on screen.
Yeah.
And that recontextualized it for me and made me re-watch it, because I thought, okay, if the actor thinks this movie performance has value above and beyond what he's done before, then maybe there's signs of extra effort going on here. And I really think there is. When he's doing the psycho walk down the aisle with the severed head and the sandwich, that really stuck with me. Two key visuals in this movie that really stuck with me is Sam Raimi on the hook and him marching down the aisle doing that. There's not a moment of him being on screen that I'm bored, for sure. And that's the highest praise you can give someone in a slasher, probably.
Absolutely. And like I'm pretty sure that it is him, like in the shots where it's shadows and stuff, and we're seeing the killer in shadows, because it looks
no
like
way
him.
it can't be a stunt. There's no stunt people in this, I bet. Like shoestring,
There might be some fake champs behind the wheels, but like
Mm.
so I like that. Like we're not faking out the physicality like we do in some other slashers where we're trying to hide who the killer is.
Yeah, where you get like a weird, super tall, buff guy shadow for a tiny little dweeby guy that you don't suspect. I don't feel misled when it comes to who the killer is in this movie. I feel well placed as an audience member to make my own mind up, and I don't think he could have done anything further to elevate it. He's Jack Nicholson maniacal 1 minute, he's kind of creepy uncle the next, and then he's pretty innocuous for the most part, which is again just pretty much pitch perfect for the role and for the mystique.
I find him annoying.
Yeah,
but I like it
for sure.
Like I say, he's the only person in this movie I think giving a good performance. I think Sam Raimi is as good as anybody else in this movie.
Yeah,
but I don't think anybody is saying that this is their best work, except maybe Danny Hicks.
Yeah, I mean, having seen Sam and Ted Raimi on screen, not as much as I would like, but definitely a chunk.
Yeah,
I feel like Ted is such a creepy guy, and he's got one of those adorably creepy faces. I think they could have done more to creep him up a little bit, but he does a lot of great facial acting and some good physical comedy and stuff. I really enjoy Sam Raimi in this because he's giving quite what I feel like is a fairly accomplished and natural performance. He's the only one in the whole movie who feels like he's really that person. Yeah. I guess because he's probably just being himself, if we're honest.
Yeah. I saw, who's that fucking actor that's in everything? Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
I saw him talking on a TikTok or something where he was talking about like that they should teach acting in like film school because they teach you how to direct, but they don't teach you how to be an actor.
Okay.
And like the best directors should be able to act and understand the process of acting.
Interesting.
Because like, how do you direct someone if you don't understand the sort of internal situation of what they're going through? Now, I'm not saying that Sam Raimi is, an actor, but I do think that he at least understands basically what it means to be an actor because he was in these shorts as a kid. He's not an actor, but like he does. Yeah, I think he just knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I think he's such an intimate filmmaker. He's a real boots on the ground director. Like, I mean, I know we keep going back to Evil Dead, and again, that's probably not particularly fair on Scott Spiegel. We're talking about his movie, but everything I've read about the making of those movies is that everyone was in the shit together. Everyone's getting physically injured. Everyone's ending up in hospital. Everyone's rolling around in filth. Nobody's showering. Everyone's freezing cold. Everyone's boiling hot. Everyone's covered in grime and blood. I think it would be really unfair to say that he's not an actor because we've seen him act in a bunch of stuff and done a great job, but there's an intimacy to his process where the line between actor, director, writer, shemp, boom guy, whatever, just kind of blurs, in the same way, like we said, they're a punk rock band, right? They're doing everything. And I think he's obviously built a career out of that and developed his craft in so many areas, from not being afraid or too prideful or too rigid to grab the fucking thing and make the blood fly, and to build the fucking camera rig with his bare hands. The guy's a, no hesitation in saying this, genius. And I think any genius can act. Sorry, Bradley Cooper. Like, I know you're elevating your craft to absurd levels here, but I think I would probably disagree and use Sam Raimi as a case in point. Like, you don't have to have studied acting and be an actor in order to direct well. I think you have to be willing to have empathy and understand other people, and you're going to be a fucking director and not know how actors work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just an empathy question, I think. I tell you what, Bradley, this is an interesting point to make though, right? I tell you what Bradley Cooper could not pull off, and that's Sam Raimi's part in the movie Intruder. I think it's uniquely fucking sectioned off for guys like Sam Raimi. And there's an area of like slasher / slacker, slasher / slacker movies. The only guys like Ted and Sam Raimi and fucking Kevin Smith and the Dante Hickses of the world, that's their turf. You can't put Bradley Cooper in there and have him thrive. He wouldn't last 2 seconds on the set of Intruder. He's too hot. I think that's the problem, right? You need real guys. You need guys who've actually slacked off at supermarket jobs before. You can't have Bradley Cooper who's clearly just getting laid the whole time.
Yeah, like even the good-looking, quote-unquote, like the romantic lead in this is just a guy that looks like a normal guy.
Yeah, he's Friday the 13th part whatever fodder. He's that guy. And yeah, he's great and very good-looking and probably very talented, but he's perfect for this because you can set him up and knock him down. You can't do that with a BC.
I have an important question for you, Sam.
Here it comes.
Do pineapples make you fart?
Not that I'm aware of.
So when Bill calls a mixture of pineapple and beans the fart blossom special.
Because beans make you fart and pineapple makes everything smell good.
Is that what it is? Is that the joke that I've missed there?
I assume so. You're looking at me like you've never heard that beans make you fart.
No, I know that beans make you fart. So the blossom is the nice smell of your fart.
I think so. I mean, pineapple makes...
Yeah, well, I know that. Everybody knows that, Sam.
Has an effect on a lot of bodily fluids and gases that make them more palatable, shall we say. So that was my assumption. Not a good joke, let's bear in mind. And I completely forgot it even happened the moment he said it. And again, it's that weird, like, shitty, crappy fucking, all right, uncle, thanks, you're old, we don't want to hang out with you moment that I love.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't have got that joke. I mean, I didn't get that joke. And
you don't strike me as a guy who does a lot to freshen the odor of your flatulence.
What do you mean? I wash my bum once a fortnight like everyone else.
Yeah, not intending in any way to improve is it even improve at a certain point? Do you? What makes a fart good is the big question of today's podcast. Is it how bad it smells? Is it how loud it is? Tune in next week.
I think, the louder and the smellier, the better.
Right. I think you can get away with more with super loud, zero odor. I've built a reputation off that. Like, I've had to preface a lot of farts with, this is going to be funny and it's not going to smell. Like, top billing. I think getting away from Bradley Cooper's farts and getting back to Intruder. Again, I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't have much to say about the performances in this movie. And I mean, I now understand why a little bit better. It's because when the cast does exactly what they're meant to in a slasher, there is less to talk about because they're pitch perfect for what they're meant to be there for. You're supposed to be slightly invested, but not obsessed. You're supposed to have like an emotional reaction to each character that is so mild that you can do anything with these people. You can make them your heroes, you can make them your villains, which is massive. You can kill them in the grisliest way possible. You can kill them in the most completely forgettable and dismissible way imaginable. They are inoffensive to the point where they don't upset your audience and make them want to leave and never watch the movie again, but they're memorable enough with their realistic performances that you buy in enough to have them die.
you don't want them to die in this movie. It's not like, oh,
No.
I want to keep them safe. It's not that. It's just do what you like.
Yeah, let's see how this goes. You know,
Yeah.
that's the real fucking such an intangible when it comes to slasher movies. It's so hard to pinpoint how it's achieved, but it's one of the most important aspects, and it's where so many directors read the genre wrong. And that you've got to lump credit onto Scott Spiegel for reading the pitch of that perfectly.
Yeah. Another thing that I would lump a whole load of credit onto Scott Spiegel was there are some visual things that I didn't include in my list of Raimiisms that I thought were amazing. And it was all to do with reflection. And we don't see Sam Raimi play with reflection a lot. So I think these are pure Spiegel. But like when they first throw Craig out and he's outside and like the leads are inside and we see their reflection in the glass and he's outside sort of giving them the finger and stuff. That is an amazing way of having everybody in that shot when when you're seeing two different perspectives. Like it's genius.
Yeah, it's super cool. It made me want to see it in a modern context as well.
Yeah.
There were shots in this where I was like, fucking cool as shit, kind of jank. Imagine it in like a fucking full-on HD setting. That would look amazing.
There was a couple more of those with reflection, and one where the reflection is in a pool of blood.
Yeah, the pool of blood stuff was great. The dripping of the blood on the light that made it red, kind of a Raimiism, right? Well, kind of a Hitchcockism, I guess. But
Yeah.
again, another Hitchcocky shots up through the phone, through the fucking dial of the phone.
Yeah.
Amazing. So many great angles, so much fun had with the camera that could have just been stationary. You know, there's no reason to put so much effort into this except for the fun.
Yeah, there's like that one shot, which I did include in my list of Raimiisms because I do think it's very Raimi, when the sort of the door handle is slowly creaking open and you get door handle POV.
So
and
good.
like the camera is sort of slowly twisting. Oh, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, and I totally think your point about reflections is bang on. Like Raimi's more crazy lights and you know, jarring camera movements and the insanity that comes with all of that. What I have to assume is a classic shot where Bill's got his head framed fully by that jar, and you just see him like turning his head in that leery way. I've seen so many like music videos that use that, and you know, moments in other movies that are like jar, you know, bending face type shots. I thought that was such an amazing image.
That's what makes this film underappreciated. Like, or that's what makes this film interesting. Like, it could just be, you know, Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge.
Sure.
Which is like similar budget, like similar level of stars attached, fucking Pauly Shore, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's fine. Phantom of the Mall is perfectly fine. I enjoy it. But like, nobody's like, oh, this is an underappreciated slasher. It's like, it's just another slasher that they made in 1990 or 1991 or whatever, when they were trying to churn out as many fucking bullshit slasher movies as they could to make $500,000 every 6 months or whatever.
Yes.
And like the idea that like somebody in this cared enough. It wasn't that like some suit was like, hey, why don't we have a slasher movie in a supermarket? It came from somebody's brain, somebody that cares brain, and they cared enough to fucking try.
Yeah. I love that it's apolitical as well. It's not, you know, it's not pushing a fucking message on you. It's just a slasher. And that's getting rarer and rarer. It's just fun from front to back.
Yeah, like it could have easily been like the Good Burger plot of like, oh, the big Globo Mart is buying the building, like Empire Records or whatever. Like it could have easily have been that, just to give it a level of like politicization or whatever. But it doesn't need to be that.
Doesn't need it. Could have been like taking swipes at, you know, disposable. It could have done like a disposable culture take. It could have done, you know, that fucking Thanksgiving movie that haunts my shitty dreams. Could be a take on, you know, crowd mentality and you know, these people that go for these insane sales and trample each other to death. Like, doesn't do any of that. It's just a guy fucking killing teenagers in a supermarket at night. Fuck yeah. I want to watch it now. As soon as we started talking about it, I was like, I want to watch it again. It fucking rips.
It does rip. Now, before we sort of go away and come back and give our final thoughts, can we just like go through some of the gore?
Yeah, let's do some kills. Am I right in thinking I counted, but I might have got it wrong. Is there 9 kills?
At least 9 on-screen kills.
Great. Okay. Perfect.
So we start off, and it's just we start off with knives. It's pretty basic, but
Sword-like knives.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we're happy with it. And the gore and the prosthetics are they're fine.
Yeah, they're stabby. To be honest, so worth noting, I watched the uncut version that's now widely available.
Yeah,
this was
good.
another movie that was shredded to fuck by Nazi censorship, and
We should be censoring Nazis.
Yeah, right. This is the only way to watch this movie. If you've got any cut that isn't the full unadulterated, super HD, magical, wonderful, restored version, you're probably going to miss some gore.
The bandsaw scene was heavily cut, as you may have guessed.
Yeah.
I really love, and it's a janky prosthetic, but I really love it when Danny is getting his head pushed onto the spiky thing.
Yeah.
And I love it because it pays off a really long shot where that is the central focus of the shot of an entire sort of expository conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, why are we looking at this fucking spike for 7 minutes? And we all know why, but like,
yeah, of course. But how?
yeah, it's fucking great. And like I say, it's a janky like head model.
Yeah, it's like the makeup is bad on the head. That's really the only thing that lets it down. Like they just slap a load of foundation on it. It was probably rotting or something, and they had to fucking cover it up. But yeah, receipt spindle to the eye, nice.
Yeah, it still works. Like you're still wincing and chuckling as it's happening, and I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
And then obviously that he doesn't die, and we see him sort of crawling around.
Yeah,
which pays off dividends at the end when he sort of comes back, but it's really fucking Bill puppeting him.
Bill puppeteering his head and then giving it a little kiss. Fucking magic stuff. I genuinely didn't see that coming either. I thought it was legit him crying out for help. Nope.
Yeah, the two things that make Bill seem genuinely and beautifully crazy is that little bit, and when she spits in his face and he licks it up,
licks it off. Yeah, I love that shit. He at that point in the movie, he's starting to give me like Vietnam vet vibes. Like this is a guy who might have seen some shit and squashed it down his whole adult life until this day, and it's not hinted, it's not written, it's obviously not a part of the movie, but you get that feeling there's something majorly fucked about this guy coming out for the first time, and that's great.
Yeah, I mean the age works.
Yeah, bags of menace just coming out on this one magical night. It's fucking so fun.
Yeah,
I think I might have mentioned this on the pod before, but I really like the head being crushed with the box crusher. Not just because the whole head isn't in there, which is perfect, crushing like half the head and like shaving off from the jaw upwards or whatever, but because we used to play a game in a warehouse I used to work in where you would put your head in the box crusher for as long as you could and then pull it out as close to the crushing as you could, and you'd have one guy standing there with his hand on the emergency stop and the other guy would have his head in the fucking box crusher.
Like I think one degree of pressure in that situation is enough. Like as soon as that thing touches you, your head's off.
It's one of the scariest things I've ever done in my entire life. I definitely achieved contact one time. This guy Tony I worked with got a small amount of pressure on his head and we had to hit the button and pull him out of there. But I definitely felt the cold touch of the steel plate on the back of my head and whipped my head out quickly enough. It definitely like one of the most upsetting feelings of my entire life.
That is.
So I enjoyed that kill a lot.
That kill's great. You also get like inside the cardboard crusher POV earlier in the movie as well, which is great. And like again, it's set up. Every kill is set up from a mile away.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the stabs are all fine, right? They're all good stabs. There's a good amount of blood, decent delivery. But early in the movie, I remember thinking, oh no, it's just going to be bang average stabs, and maybe we are supposed to care about these characters more, and I've missed the point. And then we start getting into fucking box crusher territory, and I'm all in. But that's a great little. I don't know if that's deliberate. Maybe it's just preheating the oven, but I like starting slow like that and building it up to the most insane shit, some of the most insane shit you've ever seen.
Even some of the knife stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
When he grabs the knife sort of blade first, and he's
Yeah.
just sort of crushing it in his hand. And then, like, I guess like 2 scenes later when he gets it in between his fingers.
That's
That is
a really good piece of gore right there. I mean, it's superb. It's not overdone, doesn't cut the hand in half and have it waggling around in the air. It just wedges in there perfectly.
Yeah. I think it's the Nicotero influence that is about not lopping things off at the neck and like leaving things sort of partially intact.
Yeah.
Because like we've seen that stuff in Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. So I think that's coming from like a Savini place of like it's scarier if like you cut through the head rather than at the neck.
Yeah, and at the time, absolutely out of this fucking world suggestion, right? Everyone loves a decapitation. It's tried and tested in Hollywood. Everyone's going nuts for decapitations. But then to go to that gritty, awful place where you're like cutting through someone's fucking gums.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's revolutionary shit for gore and horror cinema, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like they pull no punches in that scene, as we've mentioned, but like the prosthetic is completely on point.
Yeah.
Like we see it several times. It's not in shadow. It's fully well lit. It could literally be. I've not seen that actor in anything else. Like they could have literally cut the top half of his head off.
Yeah, we're praising it, and it's actually snuff. But for real, like, he's screaming, he's thrashing around. It's not like one of those death scenes where the body goes completely limp, the cut is really quick, and it's obviously just someone's holding a fucking, some shitty prosthetic and running it through a saw a couple of times. This looks like it was obviously a one and done because that looked expensive and hard to make. And it looks real as fuck. It's the closest thing you're ever going to see to that happening in real life, if you're that way inclined, which I hope you're not.
And like it feels like there's some real heft to it. It feels like
Yeah.
there's some real weight there, and it's really it's fucking beautifully done.
Yeah, normally something gives, or like, the way the hand's holding it, or there's something there that makes you go, that's not as heavy as it looks, or it's it's scrunchy or it's papery or there's something weird happening that makes you feel like there's not real flesh, touching real flesh there. But the other thing is, it's just about on the right side of being, fantastical and silly to not make you feel like you're seeing something genuinely terrible happening in front of you. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even remotely wince at any of the gore in this movie. I just enjoyed all of it because it's cartoonish, and that's exactly what I look for in gore. If it's not going to be huge, it better be funny. And if it's not going to be funny, it better be silly. And if it's not going to be silly, it better just be fucking Greg Nicotero.
Also, I don't know if you watched the Fear Street movies from a few years back. Those like Netflix, straight to Netflix movies. But there's a kill in that is ripped directly out of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one?
The bandsaw.
Oh, okay.
And they're in a supermarket. It's like the whole deal. So like somebody in that. I mean, I never read the Fear Street books, so I don't know how graphic they were.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure these were like adult versions of like those books. So like presumably they weren't this horrifying or this violent. And like I say, I never really read them. I was much more of a point horror guy.
Yeah.
Shout out the Yearbook, my favorite point horror. But yeah, so like, and that's just as bloody and just as gory. But like, I watched it and I was like, I can't enjoy this because I've seen it before better.
Yeah, the original.
Yeah. There's loads of good stuff with the eyeballs. There's like she stands on an eyeball at one point. He's picking around in a jar of olives.
The
and there's
eyeball in the jar is great. Yeah, I love that shit. Again, like when I was watching this, I was thinking, oh, Jamie's going to like this because you were talking recently about not having seen all that many slasher or serial killer movies where body parts and victims are placed to be found or placed in a way that's satisfying to the killer somehow. So the fact that he puts the bandsword head just slightly twisted,
I
the
love
top
that.
and the bottom just slightly off center and misaligned, I thought, oh, Jamie's gonna love that.
There's that, and then also the little sort of conveyor belt thing that they sort of slide down to hang out with each other. And when he slides down it, he's fully intact, and then like he just sort of falls apart. It's fucking amazing.
And the guy that's cut in half and his top half's in the barrel and then his legs are sticking out the other barrel. It's perfect.
There's a sign that says half off. Like
half off, yeah.
It's great.
It is great. It doesn't feel tired. This is my main my main point about this movie. None of this feels like it's been done before, even though you've seen variants of this in a million movies.
Yeah.
It feels fresh. It feels exciting. It feels incredibly well paced. Slasher movies live and die by pacing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is like beat for beat exactly what you want. It is a beer and popcorn movie. But it's of the highest possible caliber.
Yeah. There's never really a lull.
No lulls.
And then it ends in a fucking stupid, amazing way with the final girl and the bad boy getting arrested for all of the murders.
Yeah, and you think, okay, so they're getting nicked. That's unpredictable and great and really, really funny. And clearly in this movie universe, they're just going directly to jail. They're
Absolutely.
not even getting a fucking trial. Like, they just get taken to a jail. But then Bill just pops back to life and everyone screams. It's so good. Because you think, oh no, the real killer died, so there's no way they're ever going to be vindicated because it's just his last words against theirs. And because he's dead, they can't interrogate him and pick it out of him. And then he pops back to life and you think, that's even kind of worse. Like, that's somehow worse. I love that shit.
Come on, man. Does that thing even work? No. There's nothing out there. It's just dead air.
What a movie, man.
What a silly fucking goose fun time. I put it very, very highly in my list of slashers now because it's competing with The Burning. Like, in my head, The Burning is quite artistic in a lot of ways. A lot of what I love about The Burning is the artistry and the I guess the off-center look of it and the weird chilling kind of atmosphere, whereas this does so much more of what I actually really like, and I find it far more entertaining.
I would compare it to The Burning a lot more closely, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if The Burning was made in 1988 as opposed to 1980,
Sure.
this is the exact movie that it would be.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Like, it's people that want to make something interesting and want to make something cool that isn't like all the stuff that we've seen before, and that has some real style and some fucking panache to it, rather than just be like, let's just chung it out for some.
Yeah, we've
some
got a
spare
setting. Let's
cash.
churn some kills.
Yeah.
No, I like. There's definite parallels, and what I love is that this clearly wouldn't exist in the way that it exists without a movie like The Burning, and maybe with The Burning specifically. Maybe it's a massive influence. We don't know, I guess, but any slasher made in this time period has The Burning as at least like partial blueprint, right?
Yeah. Well, I know that Spiegel didn't want to make something that was like artistic.
Yeah.
He wanted to make something that was a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Because I think we were sort of maybe trying to, or some people at least were trying to sort of step outside of the, do you know, like this whole, we call it elevated horror these days or whatever, but people were like, oh, it's a thriller with bullshit, whatever. It's just a horror film.
Sure.
And he's like, I want to make a straight down the middle slasher movie that is like Halloween, but through the lens of him and like Raimi's and those guys, just like, this is what comes out. This is what falls out of you when you filter slasher through these fucking idiots. I love it.
Slasher through idiots. I love it. That's exactly what it is. The trick, my summary, I think, is really simple. The trick here is that it feels fresh as a daisy. There's not a moment in this where you roll your eyes. You don't think, oh, I've seen it before, even though you have. That's what's really clever about this. It's fast-paced, but it's well-paced. It's fucking perfectly executed visually. It looks exactly the way you want this movie to look, and I think the acting is pretty much bang on. I'm gonna rate this. Regret me not. I'm gonna rate this fucking highly. I'm gonna give it. No, you go first.
Okay. I mean, I completely agree on everything. I think the reason that it feels fresh, even though we've seen these kills before, is that there's just that sense of joy in there.
Yeah.
And like, there's also a sense of like, we may have seen this since, and we may have seen it before we saw this, but we still somehow know that this is first.
Yeah.
There's a real sort of sense of discovery almost when like the way that they're doing it isn't the way that it was done in 1996 or 2004 or whatever. When we see it in more modern movies, it's like
Yeah.
this is happening, and it just it feels perfect.
And it's not as shiny as a modern horror movie set in a supermarket would be.
No.
All of the products look real because they are.
Yeah.
Everything in this supermarket looks 100% untouched reality because that's exactly what it is. It's not production line shit. It's not overthought. It's just, here's what we've got. Fucking roll camera.
Yeah, I mean they absolutely did not have the budget to be like, well, we can't replace all of these products with Let's potatoes chips and all that stuff. So like,
Exactly.
we just have to use. And I think I was like, oh, I wonder if these are real products the first time I watched it, and then I saw like Tide and was like, okay,
Yeah.
now I
That's
now I
fucking
know.
real.
Yeah, but like they just made a really fucking great movie,
Yeah.
and like it's just filled with the sort of joy that makes me really, really happy. I feel like this movie could easily be a happy place for me.
Definitely. It's so powerfully nostalgic that, and without reducing the quality, normally I'll use nostalgic disparagingly, but it has such a powerful nostalgia to it that it makes me wish I could have rented it on VHS as a teenager. Like it wants to drag you back to that era in all the best possible ways, and without really trying too hard to do that. I'm going to rate this film 7 puppeteered severed heads out of 7.
Wowzers.
It's a pretty perfect slasher. You're going to really struggle for a summer night, couple of beers, good time movie. Wowee, did it do its job. Heck yes.
Yeah. It's just really, really well made. And like, obviously Sam Raimi has never made a slasher movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the nearest you're ever going to get.
Fuck yeah.
I don't love when Sam Raimi works outside of genre films.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've discussed before that all films are genre films. Every film has a genre.
Yeah, sure.
So like the phrase genre films, but we know what that means.
Yeah.
And like, even when he's doing Westerns, like I love that. The Quick and the Dead, it's amazing. I might watch it tonight. I've been thinking about it loads. But he never made a slasher film. So his old pal, Scotty SS himself, the SS showed up, and he made the fuck out of this movie. Like,
he really did.
It's Raimi and all the bits that it needs to be. I really love the way that they didn't light this movie. Really, it's not. It never feels lit.
No.
Or like particularly attractive to look at, but it is. It's really clever with how it uses light, and it's really light in some of the most violent, most horrible bits.
Yeah, it's really flat and beige when it needs to be.
Yeah.
The setting knows when to be the setting. Like, it knows when to be the background, and it also knows when to be fucking pure howling terror swirling around the guy that's dying.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the pacing, as we've said, is perfect. The edit is amazing. There's nothing I would change.
Yeah.
The editor, by the way, is called King Wilder. And I was like, well, that's obviously a pseudonym. But I can't find out who that is. I was low-key expecting, because I didn't remember off the top of my head who edited this. I thought it might have been a Roderick James.
Yeah.
Who edited Evil Dead 2, which is obviously the Coens.
Sure.
Or maybe the Evil Dead 1, maybe not Evil Dead 2, I can't remember. So I'm convinced it's a pseudonym. He does have a directorial credit of like the American Ultraman TV show.
Yeah, he does. As well as The Caller from 1987.
Yeah.
Part of the editorial department on that.
So like, it has to be a pseudonym to me. Like,
It's got to be, right?
Yeah. So I did some digging, but I couldn't figure out who it was. Maybe it's Scott Spiegel working under a different name. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, to really complete the fucking hat trick there, like acting, directing, and editing.
He co-wrote this with Lawrence Bender, who is obviously, I think this is his first sort of film where he's out of the.
I mean, well, what do you call Bender primarily? I mean, he's camera, electrical producer.
Yeah, I mean, he's
right?
mostly producer to me. Obviously,
big time producer.
Yeah. So obviously, he worked very closely with Tarantino for a long time.
Yeah.
But I guess before this, he would have been described as what? Camera department? I don't know.
Bits guy.
Yeah. He was a gaffer, a best boy, a grip. I don't know, one of those.
I recently became acquainted with a lighting guy, like a movie and ads lighting guy, and he told me a lot of interesting stuff about the biz.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Care to elaborate?
Nope.
Okay.
Too good, too easy. So come on, what are you rating the movie Intruder, directed by Scott Spiegel, from the mind of the Spiegmeist? We're talking about 1989. We're talking about X-rated movies. Intruder, what's your rating?
I give this 12 seconds of Bruce Campbell out of 12.
Fuck yeah. Wow, this is one of our highest rated movies.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's genuinely good.
I don't know if I would go that far. I think it's probably only good to us. I think like Green Room is genuinely good. I think
Yeah, that's fair.
this is good, but this is fun, but not genuinely good.
Yeah, we're not in scare quotes like real movie territory here.
No, not by a long shot. But if you like the kind of nights that we like having, then this movie is for you.
And if you like this podcast, you should go to our social media accounts and follow them. That's at FT Horror Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I've just started sharing VHS movie trailers on our TikTok.
Superb top tier content coming at you. If you want to know what this podcast looks like on social media, all you got to do is type in at FT Horror Show and you'll be treated to a cornucopia of audiovisual treats.
It's true. And what you could also do is whip out your phone right now. I mean, it's already in your hand because you've gone to FT Horror Show to follow us on all the socials. But pull up what you're listening to this on now and rate it 5 stars. You know it's 5-star content.
I mean, this one definitely is. I can't say that for every episode, but if you're not rating this 5-star, you can get to fuck. Like Jamie says, support the pod, back your boys. The more ratings and shit we get, the more we can make.
Yeah, and don't forget to tell your friends.
Yeah, super important that you tell people that stuff's good in this world because the algorithm sure doesn't.
It's true. Anything else you want to say before we fuck off, Sam?
Thanks for a lovely time. I mean, watching this movie was great fun, and if you hadn't recommended it to me, I probably would have put it off for another year, maybe even more.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I got to it when I did. I needed it, and it delivered on every level, so cheers.
Yeah, I think the only negative thing that I can say is that we didn't get to watch it together, which I think would have been an absolute hoot.
That's always the only downside to these movies, Jamie.
Yeah.
Mad shout out to Sam Raimi's death, by the way. The hook, love it. Loved every second. Him hanging on that hook was the scariest bit of this movie for me. Anyway, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about the hookage.
I can't stop talking about this film. We should go.
Yeah. No, we should. We are going. But
Okay.
we didn't talk about the hook, and we should have done.
Yeah,
Maybe
enjoy it.
It's best to leave some stuff to the imagination.
This is just like some fuckers halfway through typing, like, they didn't even mention the hook kill in their review. These guys are fucking hacks. I got you, buddy. Fuck you.